Question number 1 on the practice test is, what is the constant in the expression 5x plus 7? It's the 7. 5x can change depending on the value of x. If x is 1, it's 5. If x is 2, it's worth 10. So 7 is the constant. What's the variable in the expression 10x to the 5th power? It's the x. The x can change in value. True or false? Number 3, an expression is simplified when it has no like terms. You can add and subtract things that are like each other, so that means this implies you have to do all the addition and subtraction. Multiplication doesn't matter, you can multiply things that aren't like. But this is a true statement. If there are no like terms, that expression is simplified. Like terms have the same variables, partly true, but they also have to be the same power. So partly true means it's false. It has to be totally true. Number 5, the coefficient is the number in front of a variable, such as 8n to the second. And indeed, the number in front of the variable is the coefficient. That's true. Number 6, you can only add and subtract things that are the same. That part's true. But you can multiply things that are different. That part's true also, so the whole statement's true. Number 7, when simplifying an expression, do operations in parentheses first. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. Parentheses and other grouping symbols. Exponents, multiplication, division, left to right. Addition, subtraction, left to right. Do the operations in parentheses first. True. Or other grouping symbols. Number 8 is a simplifying using addition or subtraction. This is an addition problem. It isn't simplified because these are like terms. They have the same variable, a squared, b to the 4th, a squared, b to the 4th. These terms are like each other, so you have to put together the 4 and the 15 to get 19. And the variables don't change, and neither do their powers. They're like labels. When you add 4 of one thing and 15 of the same thing, the labels are the same. They don't change. I'm going to change the order in this one more conveniently to make it 4x to the 3rd y plus 12x to the 3rd y. Put all the terms that are like each other together. Minus 4, which is the same as add negative 4, plus 12. So we can do these two first. That's 16x to the 3rd y. When you do combine a 4 negatives and 12 positives, the net is 8 positives. So it simplifies to be 16x to the 3rd y plus 8. 10 a squared b to the 3rd c to the 5th plus 4a squared b to the 3rd c to the 5th. These terms are like each other, same variables, ABC, ABC, second power, third power, fifth power. We can add 10 and 4. And when you do, you get 14. Variables don't change, a squared, b to the 3rd, c to the 5th. No terms are like the constant, 5, so it just hangs out there. That's the answer, 14a squared, b to the 3rd, c to the 5th, minus 5. Simplify, and this is with multiplication. 2x to the 3rd, this 3 means you're going to repeat this multiplication of 2x 3 times. So it's like 2x times 2x, and it might be worth taking the time to write this out for you. And 2x. 2 times 2 times 2 is 8. X times x times x is a short way to write it's x to the 3rd. We can multiply 6 times 3 to get the coefficient on this. A to the 2nd times a to the 3rd would be a to the 5th. B to the 1st times b to the 2nd is b to the 3rd. And then just c to the 4th times 1 will still remain c to the 4th power. So to sum that up, it's 18 because 6 times 3 is 18. A to the 4th, because a to the 5th, because 2 plus 3 is 5. B to the 3rd, use this like a 1 here. 1 plus 2 is 3. And c to the 4th is just multiplied by 1. 18, a to the 5th, b to the 3rd, c to the 4th. I'm going to show this one in a slightly different way. I'm just going to, these are just a 2 times n to the 4th times n to the 2nd times p times 10 times n to the 2nd times n to the 3rd times p to the 2nd. And because it's multiplication, the commutative property applies. I can switch the order of everything. I want to put 2 times 10 together, n to the 4th, n to the 2nd together, n to the 2nd, and n to the 3rd. That's a 3, and p to the 2nd power. I'm going to multiply these together and get 20. Multiply these together and get n to the 6th. Multiply these together and get n to the 5th. all times p to the second, and there is the answer. So it's just another way to organize your thinking. You could have thought 2 times 10 is 20. M to the fourth times m to the second is m to the sixth, n to the second, n to the third, n to the fifth, and then the p to the second. Okay, simplifying with several operations. In this case, it's just an addition and subtraction. But first thing I want to do is make this negative, the subtract 2, become add negative 2. Now everything is addition, so I can reorganize to my heart's content and put like terms together. 14m to the second plus 2m to the second plus negative 2 plus positive 15. And I can group them any way I want to, and I like this. These terms can be added because they're like each other. These terms can be combined with addition because they're like each other. 14 and 2 makes 16. The label doesn't change, it's addition. 2 negatives and 15 positives makes 13 positives. So the result is 16m to the second plus 13. Negative 5x plus 12 minus x can be written as negative 5x plus 12 plus the opposite of x. Then I can reorganize it like this. And you have to remember that this means there's one of these, one opposite of x compared to 5 opposites of x's. So there's 5 negatives here and 1 negative here, and the net is 6 negative 6x plus 12. Number 16 is a multiplication problem. I can reorganize it to be negative 2 times negative 3 times x, which results in 6x to the second power. So number 17, if I could do 2a plus 8, I would do that first, but they're not like terms. I can't combine them with addition. But this symbol means multiply 6 by everything that's inside the parentheses. So I'm going to multiply 6 by 2a and 6 times 8. This is the distributive property. 6 times 2a results in 12a, and I'm going to maintain that addition symbol. And 6 times 8 is 48. And I can't add 12a and 48 because they're not like each other, so this is the final answer. And number 18, there's a subtraction. Here's the subtraction. There's a multiplication of 8 times all this, and then there's an addition. So I would do what I can do in the parentheses first if I could do anything, but I can't. Next is the multiplication, so I have to do 8 times 3d and then subtract 8 times 4. Don't forget, the most common mistake is to remember to do 8 times 3d and then just go on to say minus 4, but you have to multiply the 8 times the 4 also. Don't forget to do that. 8 times 3 times d is the same as 24 times d, minus 8 times 4, which is 32, plus 18. I'll change the subtract 32 to add negative 32. And these two things can be combined with addition. 32 negatives and 18 negatives. There's more negatives, and there are 14 more negatives than there are positives. So this will be 24d plus negative 14. And then if you wanted to, you could rewrite that as 24d minus positive 14. So either one of these two answers would work. You could leave it either way. Number 19 is solving a two-step equation that involves a multiplication and an addition. So we do these, undo these in reverse order from which we would normally do them. So we would, if you knew what x was, you'd multiply and then add to get 63. So we have to go backwards and subtract and then divide. So the opposite of adding 3 is to subtract 3. We'll do that to both sides using the properties of equality. This is a zero pair, leaving us with 5x equals, and 63 minus 3 is 60. Remember to maintain this left side, right side, and the equal symbol in the middle. How do we undo multiplying by 5 to divide by 5? That leaves x, which is what we're looking for. and 60 divided by 5 is 12. Then you come back up to the original equation, and you would say 5 times 12 is 60, 60 plus 3 is 63, so it checks. We're going to solve for x, and 7 times 2x plus 6 equals 140. This is already simplified in here. We can't do any of that stuff, but we can do the multiplication. So we want to do all the arithmetic we can do on both sides before you start trying to get x all by itself. 7 times 2x is 14x. Add 7 times 6, which is 42, and that equals 140. Subtract 42 from both sides. That's a 0 pair. This is a 98. 14x equals 98. Now to undo multiplying by 14, we'll divide by 14. And x would be 7. 14 goes into 98 7 times. So you should come back up here and say 2 times 7 is 14. 14 and 6 is 20. 7 times 20 is 140, so it's a good answer. We have to do some simplifying on the left side before we figure out what to do next. I'm going to make this subtract 5 the same as add negative 5. Because it's all addition now, I can rearrange any way I like to, and I'm going to put 2x together with 4x. And then add negative 5. That all equals 1. This is 6x. Whoops. 6x plus negative 5 equals 1. And to undo adding negative 5, I can add positive 5, or I can subtract negative 5, which is the same as adding positive 5. 6x equals 5 plus 1, which is 6. Divide both sides by 6. And we get 1. X is 1. So let's go back up and try 1. 4 times 1 is 4. 4 plus negative 5 is negative 1. 2 times 1 is 2, and negative 1 plus 2 is 1. So x equals 1 is a good answer. T divided by 5 minus 7 equals 5. So I'm going to add 7 to both sides first. This would be a 0 pair, so that'll be 0. And I'm left with t divided by 5 equals 12. This is where it gets a little, sometimes pre-algebra students get a little confused about what to do with the 5 and the 12. But we're dividing by 5, so we want to multiply by 5 to undo that. That would be 1t, which is what we're looking for. What is t? And 12 times 5 is 60. So we come back up and say 60 divided by 5 minus 7. Does it equal 5? This is 12 minus 7, and that's 5, and 5 equals 5. This is an inequality, so it could be a little tricky if it involves multiplying or dividing by negative 1. So you just kind of work through it, but remember that you might have to switch the inequality symbol. Otherwise, you can treat this inequality symbol just like it's an equal sign until you get to the end where you graph it. So we have to add 21 to both sides. So that would be 6x, 0 pair here. 9 and 21 makes 30. Keep that inequality symbol because we didn't use a negative number multiplying or dividing. Then we divide by positive 6, so it's going to stay the same symbol. X is greater than or equal to 5. And so we put a 0 and a 5 on the number line. It can be 5, so we make it a solid dot, and greater than goes in this direction. It's a good idea to come back and check. Like, if it's greater than 5, it could be 10. Maybe 10 would work. So we would say 6 times 10 plus 21. Is it true that's greater than or equal to 9? 60 plus 21 is 81, and that's greater than 9. It just helps you know that you went the right direction here when you put all this stuff in. You see in this one, it's start with 18 and subtract 6 times x, and the result is less than or equal to negative 36. I want to make the subtract an addition of negative 6x. And we can go ahead and undo the adding 18 first by subtracting 18. So we get 0 here. Negative 6x is less than or equal to. When you add two negatives, you can just add their absolute values. And it's a negative 54. Now when we do the next step, this is the tricky one, because we're going to divide by negative 6, negative 6x, divide by negative 6, we have to flip the inequality symbol. Negative 54 divided by negative 6. That would be whatever x is, greater than or equal to positive 9. And when you graph it, I'll just move stuff up here. We're going to put in a 0 and a 9. And we go. It can be 9, so we fill that in solidly and go this direction to be greater than. If the absolute value of 8x is 64, then we could have this 64. The absolute value of 64 is 64. But the absolute value of negative 64 is also 64, because the absolute value just tells you how far this is from 0. So we have to write two things here. We can solve, and we have to solve for two. Either 8x equals 64, or 8x equals negative 64. When we solve this one, we get x equals positive 8. When we solve the second condition, I don't know why I put that in there. That shouldn't be negative 8. We get x equals negative 8. So there are two answers to this one. X either equals 8 or x equals negative 8.